Right here, I brought Brian, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I brought Brian over. So this is a picture of the Leatherman, and then next to it is a doll that someone had made. Really, the thing is that in a lot of the towns on the Leatherman circuit, he's a popular figure, popular with the kids whenever you talk to school children or scout troops, that they all want to know about the Leatherman. And so anyhow, we have a photograph that we had enlarged, and like I said, somebody had made a doll, and the member had donated it to the museum, so we have a little Leatherman doll.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah. So,
yeah. Nice little thing to go with the picture.
Yeah.
You know?
Start
with what you know, like how it, maybe the origin of him started, or...
Well, the thing is, the Leatherman, it's always the story, and this is what I grew up with, is the story of Jules Bourglet, the French merchant who came over, and, oh God, the name escaped me completely now, Dan DeLuca, in his book, The Leatherman, had basically, this is the agreement, was that it was a story that was conjured up by the Waterbury Republican-American reporter. And they later admitted that it was a hoax, because even if you went to Jules Bourglet, there was no, from Lyon, France, there was no Jules Bourglet and leather merchant and all this. And it was just a romantic story regarding this guy who wandered from the 1860s until his death in 1889. That we know that he is of French descent. Well, it's from the evidence, basically, that the few times people have heard him, he either spoke French or spoke with a French accent, which leads me, it's the popular belief was that he was French Canadian. He had a circle route of about 360 miles that went from Connecticut over into New York, and then basically a circle to go the lower part and then the upper part. And there were accounts of, research. They found that there had been, from the 1860s, his original route, that there were accounts of more in northern Massachusetts and in Vermont, New Hampshire, which leads to believe that the French he was French Canadian, and it was one of those that, for some reason, had this route that he would go up and then eventually go up to Canada and then come back down, but possibly whoever it was that he would go to see died, or the family died,
right.
And it was just, he would just do this circular route.
That's a pretty long trek.
It was, and he had caves set up, and he had, basically he had the caves that he had set up stacks of firewood, and it would be there that it was his regular route. People were able to time the appearances of when the Leatherman would come.
Okay.
That was actually when he died, the whole thing was that when he died, they were able to figure something was wrong, and they backtracked to where they found him, in one of the caves in New York State.
Right. Is it true that he was poisoned? I read somewhere, I don't know how true that is, but that the well that he drank from, that was poisoned, or...
I had heard that it was really more of a natural death, that he had died of a cancer. It was because during, I think it was the blizzard of '88, around that time, that he was basically, he didn't look well, and they decided to forcibly arrest him on vagrancy around Hartford and put him into a hospital to find out, what was wrong with him.
Right.
And they had said it was basically like a mouth cancer type that was in its stages, and then what he did was he escaped from it was just a regular hospital, but in order to get care, because he never really wanted, he would take food if it was offered, but he didn't want to really be bothered by anyone, that he just basically got his chance, he escaped and continued on his route.
Wow.
He was just wanted to follow his route.
Right, he just wanted to do his own thing.
There were stories like different vagrants and stuff. Kids might do tauntings of basically things like giving him bad food or stuff like that. And in many cases, when the parents found out it was the Leatherman, they were upset, because it was one of those that, like I said, you'd have different beggars, different vagrants that wandered.
Right.
And there were vagrant laws. But he was just that he had his route and minded his own business, and people could basically set the times.
Gotcha.
We actually had an account of him. I'm trying to remember the name of the woman, but she had encountered the Leatherman. She was driving her carriage. This was, she was driving she had her wagon, the horse was leading, and all of a sudden the horse shied. And then the Leatherman appeared, and she said she didn't know if it was the sight of the Leatherman, or better yet, the smell of the Leatherman that startled the horse. Because figuring you're wearing this whole entire suit of leather.
Was this during or after his death?
This was during his lifetime.
Oh, during his
lifetime. Yeah, that people had run into him. I had a great uncle that out on Thomaston Road, the house is still standing, that he has said that his mother had said she had fed, that they had lived in the house, and that he had stopped there a few times. But they would have things where if he came to the cave and the cave had been disturbed, he wouldn't go there again.
He wouldn't go back.
No, and there were times where kids went in, had a bonfire or whatever, had a fire where he was, and the parents found out, and there are cases, not in Watertown, but just in general, where the parents made the kids go and get wood and restack the wood so that when he came, the wood would be there for him.
And I wonder, not to interrupt you, but I also read about another legend that where a supposed mother sent her little boy to fetch firewood for them, and when he went into the woods, there was a fire, and all the wood, the wooded area was burnt, and he couldn't find any fresh wood for his mother. And when he came back to tell her that he couldn't find anything, that she told him, go back there, we need some fresh wood. And supposedly he ran into the Leatherman, and he handed him fresh wood. And when he got back to his mother with fresh wood, she was like, who gave you the fresh wood? After you said you couldn't find anything. I don't know if you heard about that story.
No, there's a lot of stories.
Yeah, I'm sure there are.
There's all these communities. You figure this towns that he passed through and the number of caves.
Yeah.
So, but that was
Yeah.
with him. And actually, the cave that I had given you directions for Crane Lookout. If you look at the cave itself is more... See, this is the official state cave because the Manitowoc Trail runs through it, and it's there. It would be more, you would say, of a summertime, that he would stay in the summer. Because when you see the wide crevices, the cavernous area that's sheltered, in the winter...
It would be kind of hard.
It would be very hard to heat. You'd have to have a major bonfire going.
Right.
And there is another cave that is on private property near there. That is, I've been told, actually it was one when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. Somebody had showed, they said, this is the real Leatherman's Cave. And it was, years went by, and then 2 years ago I went on a hike where it was going, and they said, this is the cave. And I'm like, this is the same one. But it's a smaller, it's much smaller in size. It's sort of that you would crawl, have a little fire, and lay down so that if there was a lot of snow or a lot of, rain or whatever, that you would be protected.
Yeah. And
with the cold, you can have a small fire, and it would be ventilated enough that you would be able to be warm.
Yeah, because if you're in a too small of an area, you breathe in that fire, and I'm sure you can get yourself sick and
asphyxiated.
Yeah.
But there's...
That's the word I was looking for.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of these, the caves, a lot of them, they're not, when you think of caves, people think of caverns.
Caverns, right.
And these are basically, sort of...
like rock formations.
Yeah, geological formations where one rock fell onto another, and it's sort of like a lean-to area. But it's a good-sized lean-to that, you could stand up.
From the pictures, they look like a decent size, yeah.
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 So, That's pretty much.
That's
you
pretty
know,
much the backstory.
the backstory. You know that
Yeah.
we just know that he. The evidence points that he was French Canadian,
Right.
and that he did wander. He didn't really speak a lot and kept to himself.
No, I also read they exhumed his body because of his the controversy of his identification.
Right. This was about a year, two. I was going to say within the past 2 years, in Ossining, New York.
That's where he was originally buried in
That was
Ossining, right?
Yeah. That's where he was buried in the cemetery. They had a plot in the cemetery. It was a pauper's grave, and they had put up a stone later. Years later, and I guess when they had the Connecticut State archaeologist was there, and it was when they did the exhumation. All they could really find was a few of the nails of the coffin, but nothing of any bone fragments or anything.
Right, no evidence.
For DNA, purposes. Which I sort of feel. My personal opinion is that he wanted to be left alone, basically kept to himself, anonymous, and it was. Sort of a great poetic justice is that they couldn't find anything because he's keeping his anonymity. So
Right.
it's really,
It's neat.
Otherwise, it's sort of like you're sort of disappointed too because it's like, oh, maybe we can find out who he really is.
Right, right. Let's solve the mystery.
But anyhow,
Yeah.
but I said that's one of the things of folklore and legend is